If you're a green card holder, what I'm about to tell you could save you thousands of dollars and even prevent you from accidentally putting your immigration status at risk. I know that might sound dramatic, but every single year, tens of thousands of permanent residents rush to renew their green cards without realizing that they're making a costly mistake, one that could easily be avoided if they just had the right information. And here's the thing, this isn't about some scary rumor you heard online or a piece of outdated advice floating around in Facebook groups. I'm talking about a very real set of issues that the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has been flagging. And I've seen them cause delays, denials, and months of unnecessary stress for people who simply didn't know any better. For example, did you know that renewing your green card too soon or without checking certain key details on your record could trigger extra background checks, raise red flags, or even force you to refile from scratch? Or that in some situations, you might not need to renew at all because there's a better, more permanent option that gives you far more protection. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly who should renew, who shouldn't, and the specific steps you need to take before you send in that renewal application. I'll share insider tips, real-life examples, and the exact checklist I give my own clients to avoid headaches and save time. By the end, you'll know whether renewing right now is the right move for you, or whether you should wait, prepare differently, or take a completely different path that could change your future in the US for the better. So, before you even think about filling out that renewal form, stick with me until the end. And if you find even one tip here that saves you trouble, hit that like button so more green card holders like you can avoid these mistakes. Alright, so let's get right into it. If you're holding a green card in your hand right now, or maybe yours is sitting in your wallet or tucked away in a safe place, you might be thinking, it's about to expire, I should just renew it, right? That's the natural thought most people have. But here's the truth. Just because your green card is nearing its expiration date does not always mean renewing it is your best or only option. And that's exactly where so many people run into unnecessary trouble. First, let's clear up one common misconception. Your status as a permanent resident does not expire when your green card expires. I've met people who panicked the second they saw that little date on the card coming up, thinking they'd lose their right to live and work in the US overnight. That's not how it works. The expiration date only applies to the physical card itself, not your legal permanent resident status. That said, letting your card expire can still cause some serious headaches, and I'll explain why in a minute. Now, where does the danger come in? Well, renewing a green card isn't just about filling out a form and sending a payment. It's a process where USCIS looks at you again. They check your record, your history, and your compliance with immigration laws. And if something pops up that they don't like, it can slow things down, trigger extra questions, or even put you in a situation where they want more proof that you still qualify to stay in the US. Imagine this. You send in your renewal application without checking your travel history, and USCIS sees that you've spent long stretches of time outside the US that could raise questions about whether you've abandoned your residency. Or maybe there's an old issue, like a traffic ticket that turned into a warrant, or a tax filing problem that you didn't even realize was still on your record. Once USCIS sees it during your renewal process, you've now got a bigger problem on your hands than just a new card. Another thing that surprises people is that sometimes renewing your green card is actually the wrong move because you might be eligible for something better: US citizenship. If you've been a permanent resident for at least 5 years, or 3 years if you're married to a US citizen, you might already qualify to apply for naturalization. And here's the key. If you're eligible for citizenship, it can be smarter to go that route instead of paying to renew your green card, especially if it's going to expire soon anyway. Not only does citizenship give you the right to vote and access to more benefits, it also means you'll never have to worry about renewing anything again. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to who spent hundreds of dollars on a green card renewal only to realize a few months later that they could have become citizens and skipped the renewal process entirely. That's why before you do anything, you need to step back and look at your options. Ask yourself, am I renewing because it's truly my best option, or just because I didn't know there was another path? Now, let's talk about timing, because timing is everything when it comes to immigration paperwork. USCIS recommends filing for a green card renewal about 6 months before it expires. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's the catch. Filing too early or too late can cause unnecessary stress. If you file way too early, you could be wasting money on a card that's still perfectly valid for another year or more. If you wait too long and your card expires, you might face problems with travel, employment verification, or even renewing your driver's license. Employers are required to check that your documents are valid, and if your card is expired, you might run into issues proving your right to work, even though your status is still valid. And that brings me to another important point: travel. If your green card is close to expiring and you're planning to leave the country, you really need to plan carefully. Airlines can refuse to board you if your card is expired, and re-entry to the US can become a nightmare if you don't have valid proof of your status. Sure, there are temporary stamps you can get in your passport to show proof while your renewal is pending, but that takes extra time and another appointment, and not everyone knows to do that until it's too late. Let's also touch on something that trips people up: application mistakes. The renewal form, Form I-90, might look straightforward, but even small errors can cause delays. Something as simple as using the wrong mailing address, forgetting to sign a page, or sending in incorrect photos can get your application sent back or put on hold. And in some cases, USCIS will just deny it outright if the mistakes aren't fixed quickly. Every time I hear from someone who's been waiting months longer than expected, 9 times out of 10, it's because their application got stuck over a small, avoidable detail. Now, if you've had any changes in your life since you first got your green card, like a name change, a marriage, a divorce, or a run-in with the law, that's even more reason to be extra careful. USCIS will see all of it, and you'll need to provide the right documents to explain those changes. If you don't, your application could be delayed or flagged for more review. Here's the part where I really want you to listen closely. If you've been outside the US for more than 6 months at a time, especially more than once, USCIS could question whether you've been maintaining your permanent residence. If you've been gone for a year or more without a re-entry permit, that's an even bigger red flag. And if you apply to renew without realizing how that looks on your record, you could be inviting unnecessary scrutiny. So what's the safest way to handle all this? Start with a simple self-check before you file anything. Review your travel history. Make sure your taxes are up to date. If you've had any legal issues, even small ones, make sure they're resolved and you have paperwork to prove it. And if you think you might be eligible for citizenship, seriously consider going for that instead. The cost difference isn't huge when you think about the long-term benefits, and it could save you from ever worrying about renewals again. I've worked with so many people who said, "I wish someone had told me this earlier." That's why I'm telling you now, renewing a green card is not just a box to check off. It's a decision that should be made carefully, with a full understanding of your situation. The goal here is to make sure you keep your life in the US running smoothly without surprises, delays, or expensive mistakes. And remember, every case is different. What's right for one person might not be right for another. That's why I always recommend double-checking with an immigration professional before you send in your application. A short consultation now can save you months of frustration later. By taking a little extra time before you renew, by looking at your travel history, your eligibility for citizenship, and your personal record, you can avoid the traps that so many green card holders fall into. This is your life, your status, and your future in the US. It's worth doing it the smart way.